Burn me in the dark on every current. See me in the park across a crowded street. Feel me in your mind. You know I'm flying. Shells are in the sand. Wind is sighing. This reality is going on without me. On without me. I'm so happy. Clouds are lifting, and it's easy to be free. Easy to be free in the evening. Dance me in the waves on every current. Sun is gone today. It's in my heart just burning. This reality is going on without me. On without me. I'm so happy. Clouds are lifting, and it's easy to be free. Easy to be free in the evening. Hear the wind. My heart is sighing. On the wind. My mind is flying. This reality is going on without me. On without me. I'm so happy. Clouds are lifting, and it's easy to be free. Easy to be free in the evening. It's easy to be free. It's easy to be free.
The views expressed in the following show are of the host, the guest, and the callers. The content of the following show, its accuracy, authenticity, and the ramifications of the use or application of said content is the responsibility of those speaking and listening, not the broadcast medium.
We're back and we're live. Feet to the fire. I'm your host, James Althiatric, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. I've been on video in quite a while. I've been doing audio there and again. Best way to go through all of this so you can keep in touch if you're so inclined is feettothefireradio.com. Also on Gab. I'm big on Gab. F2F, the number 2, F2F on Gab. Still on YouTube, as you're seeing, but I've also branched to others, which you can find out about. So we got a little something up there, messing up there we go. So this is 20 years coming up for doing the show, 2003, January 5th was my first broadcast. That was on Live 365 way back in the day, and I think I did 4 weeks of broadcast before I got picked up by Naked Radio. It's NEKKI radio, which was an uncensored radio, and believe me, some of the DJs were quite uncensored. But it gave me a chance to get a worldwide audience and start doing the show. I got the idea. This whole thing started, of course, from Art Bell. He is the vortex of all things alternative as far as the radio now that goes. And when he retired, I didn't like the way the show was going, and I thought, for the guy that they put in charge, I thought, heck, I could do it. So that's how I started the show. And it started out, Art Belly-ish form. I mean, I've had, if you look in some of the archives, I've had so many people like Dames and Nancy Leader talking about Planet X, and Mark Hazelwood of Planet, did a lot, big Planet X thing, Nibiru. I can't even think of all the people. David Booth was a big thing back then, with the Secret of Fatima, did a big show on that. I did a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go through all of that. So it's all available on archive. I have literally every show that I have available up via a Google Drive. You can go to feettothefireradio.com and click to the old website, and it's a little tough to figure out because not all the shows are listed and tell you what they are. A lot of them are. But when you click the link to go to the drive, you'll have 20 years of shows that you can pick from. Someday, perhaps in retirement from my day job, I'll get a better job of it, putting it all together. Because there's a lot of interesting people. Of course, over the years, a lot of guests have died. A lot of listeners have died. One thing about 20 years or 30 or 40, whatever, one thing about longevity that I've learned that you can't explain to younger people is just the concept of being alive that long and seeing all those things firsthand. Not reading a book, but actually being there. And so in that time, I've had some unfortunate things. Like I really had a nice time interviewing Glenn Kimball, and he had a great website called Ancient Manuscripts, where he has all these manuscripts that he's collected over, ancient manuscripts, all available online there. And when he passed away, the website just disappeared, and all that work was gone. So that's very sad. And if anybody is listening out here who happens to have any kind of, if there is a site up, maybe a different name or something, I've tried searching for it and in vain. It's not there. So that's one thing I was thinking about, is to be able to put together a more comprehensive view. I just don't have the time. It's all there. I want to pick around. But back in 2017, I started the current website, Feet That Fire Radio, and that is a much better shape on all of that. So now I'm going to have the mic fading. Practice with it all day. I'm going to turn up a little louder. Maybe that'll. So that is that's as far as finding me now. There's, like I said, there's other I've had trouble with YouTube. They've censored some things that they don't agree with medically, and that's fine. They could do that. It's just I wish they would tell you up front and so on. So there's other ways. If you get on a mailing list on Feet the Fire website, I can get in touch with you that way. Though I must admit I haven't been putting up a lot of emails. In fact, the last year is pretty tough. I did have the COVID thing, which actually wasn't that bad in the COVID aspect of it, ivermectin, etc. But I had developed breathing issue because I was, worrying about breathing with the oxygen. I literally had several people that I knew from my sister who was doing fine with just a little bit of a cold. They had COVID, but all of a sudden they dropped dead. And it's because their oxygen level spiked down enough to have a heart attack. And so I was kind of concerned with that, and I was concentrating and breathing heavy and all this stuff. I had a measurer that was actually off 2 points, so I caused myself a lot of grief. And it took me a couple of weeks to get back out of that. But here I am. Hey, I made it, and I'm glad that we've had those alternative things on there. So I'm going to not keep going on that. Otherwise, this will be... But one thing I didn't like is they went back and deleted videos from years ago. You know, that part bothered me. It's like, hey, years ago was okay, and now it isn't. Be that as it may. So what I've seen over the years, I started out, listening to Art Bell, driving in my truck at night in the 90s, listening to him. And one of the things I found from actually doing the show myself is that it was very disheartening, is that both guests and hosts are into making the show, Barnum and Bailey, and they're not all that pleasant nor legitimate. And having integrity as being the only thing I got, you know, I had to cut ties, and I brought stuff up that they didn't want to hear, and and so there was this awakening of myself that if I'm going to market myself to do this like as a job or a part-time job, I'm going to have to pick a lane and market to those people in that lane. And when you want to seek truth, it goes across all lanes. So if you want to pick one lane, UFOs, and look for truth, it's going to be a very thin lane in there, right? It's going to be very thin. If you want to promote UFOs, for example, we do UFOs, and we're going to talk about it. You have guests on, and you literally boost up the guest and the topic of UFO. You don't question it. And one of the things I've done, actually, pretty early on in the beginning, is I questioned everything. I started with myself. And I had my own little personal crisis breakdown type thing in the late 90s. I started with myself questioning everything. Is there a God? Is the Bible true? Or what aspects of it? I mean, I went back to zero. When my world fell apart, I go, look, I got to find reality. And I did. It took time, and, God was working with me. I mean, I determined early on that God is real, because going through all of that, I had an inner help to get through it. But so I've wanted to find what's true and real. Well, it's difficult. If you want to have a broadcast show, you can't do that. I mean, I also could suck. That could be why it didn't work out either. So I'll leave that possibility open too. I mean, obviously. But people don't want to hear. They don't want to be questioned. One of my sayings I like from Socrates is the unexamined life is not worth living. One of the things he also said is the biggest folly is to think that you know things that you don't. And it's like it's not that I'm a black pillar, or not that I'm negative, or I want to bust balloons, or I want to find reality. I want to find truth and reality. There are things that are real out there. There are things you can learn and do and use reality. And even the dark side and evil uses reality. They know what tools to use to drive up a fantasy to get someone to do what they wish. So, excuse me. I see people in the chat room typing and happy to them, but I have to pay attention to what I'm saying, or I'll lose my spot in my head. So this is what I've been doing throughout the time. Now, this year has been a little light on shows. I hope that changes around. I spent the day today. It's being a holiday. I went through and reconfigured a computer and set it up to do these things, except for this mic going out. And I redid everything, reset it up, and got it going. And here we are. We're broadcasting live. There's a YouTube chat room live now. If you want to pop in there and ask questions, I will solicit questions, topics, and what have you. If you want to know things in the past, things what happened, or current stuff, just give a holler. So the idea of being around a long time, and 20 years I guess isn't real long. I mean, people been around 40 years doing stuff, and 50 and 60. But when I've been alive, I'm 65, so I've been around longer than doing radio, obviously. And you are able to see things. I mean, I'm able to go from a regular phone, dial phone, to a cell phone, and see the difference and the advantage of it, and also the chains and slavery that comes along with it. And so you can be a better consumer or user of stuff if you've been around long enough to see how things were before it, thing, and how minds in society and has changed with it. I mean, now I walk down the street and there's people, all they're doing is with the phone. Now, I have, like I say, I'm on Gab, and I follow it, and I have texts with work and with people and all that. I mean, I do all of this stuff, but it's not my life. I mean, it's not all of it, and it's a tool. And that's a big thing I think I could see, I've noticed over the years, is when you become a obsessed or a slave with matter, with material, versus using it as a tool. I mean, I'm into audio. I can't move the camera around, but you could see I got all kinds of audio equipment and so on. And you can go too crazy. You could spend as much money as you can come up with a number. You can spend that on audio. And the question is, how much really will it be different for you? And there are people who have well-trained, very excellent hearing and can hear differences. And there are other people who buy Maseratis not for their speed and handling, but for their status and so forth. So this is the trap in matter. I'm looking around. Put something. If you're going to ask a question, put it in caps or something, so that'll catch my attention, because I have to continue what I'm doing here. So what I wanted to say, I mean, I wasn't going to go into and ramble on to let the last 20 years. I can answer questions if you'd like. If you send me emails, Feet to the Fire Radio at protonmail.com or proton.me, however you want to do it. I'll answer the stuff live with shows or what have you. But one of the things I want to say is, and take this with me, is the question I would ask is, who are you? Who are you? Now, if someone were to say, hey, who are you? You would give them an answer. And I want you to think about that now while I'm talking. What would be your answer? Your name might be a thing you would say. You might say your job, your training, your family. You have kids, your husband or wife. You have kids. Your job may be particular, or your education. Lately, these days, things are becoming more vocal about things like race, gender, and so forth and so on. But when people say, "Who are you?" and they answer that, the problem with and I've done this. The reason why I'm saying this is I figured I've put this through myself, and I went, whoa, The problem with the answer is you're not answering who you are. You're answering what you've done, or what labels that you have aspects of your life that you would identify with. So what we are missing is who we really are. I mean, the actual person looking out of your eyes. What describes that person in the most base and accurate methods? Now, you can say, well, I'm a human being. I fit the genus, Homo erectus, or whatever the genus is for the biologically describing it. Now, again, you're describing you because you are looking through the Homo erectus body. You see how I'm kind of going on this? And where we place our descriptors is where we're going to place our focus. And where we place our focus off the bigger focus of who we are will limit us and enslave us. And so let's just look at politically. So I'm a Republican, or I'm a progressive, or what have you. Well, when you say that, you have to follow those lines, and you'll have other people of that like descriptor there to help you, keep you in line. Let's see. So when you get focused, when you get off the focus, you now, not only do you lose part of you, but you now limit part of you, and you are opening yourself for slavery, manipulation. Slavery is somebody using you for their benefit without thinking about what it means to you. That's what slavery is. And so if you're not bought and sold, you're still a slave. We're all a slave here as we're attached to matter and we want to do things. We're going to have to hire ourselves out in order to be in the capitalist system to be able to do it. So what I think would happen now right now everything's falling apart. I mean, the whole thing's falling apart. And I've been doing the show for years, like I say, and I'm trying not to remember when this started. This whole QAnon thing started. It was during Trump, or was it before Trump? It's been so long now, I don't remember. But it went on for year after year after year. You know, have popcorn, sit back, relax. It's coming, and all that. And finally, I put a time on it. I said, okay, if this date, if things don't happen like they're being told is going to happen, forget it, right? It's all baloney. Well, that date came and gone years ago. And now we're sitting here with the current administration in the White House destroying the country. And again, I am not going from progressive, and what I'm talking about is not progressive conservative. Because I look at things constitutionally, and all are failing under. I mean, one of Trump's biggest failures was two things: that he either was naive or ego or both to think he could work out a deal with the other side. And he ended up, and the Republicans, of course, a lot of the Republicans were not, weren't on America's side either. So he ended up not being able to do a lot of things. But also he trusted in pharma and came up with the vax. Now, he never made it mandate. He never said he would and never would, and that's true, but he still is the one who was backing it and so on. And now we can see, there's problems along the way. So it's not that's not how I come. When people see the show, they talk to me and they go, oh, he's a Republican, he's this, he's that, he's a Christian. Most of the people who fit in those labels when addressing me would say I'm not those things. Because when I go through all of those topics, I filter it out by my lack of contradiction reality filter. I do that to everything and everybody. Excuse me, I'm going to start coughing now. Because that is going to be what separates reality from not reality is the lack of contradiction. Now, people make mistakes. People could find a spot where they're a hypocrite in and go, oh, yeah, I never noticed that. And you change, and that's okay. Finding out things that you need to change is not bad. Not changing them, that's another thing. So when you look out there and see what's going on, there's no label that's winning here. As far as I can see, nobody's doing good. Nobody's winning. You have people who are doing evil. You have people who are doing kind of good. You have people who are inadequate. You have people who are liars and hypocrites. You have people that may have good intentions, but don't have the wherewithal to do it. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So that's why I think it's important that, one, you find out who you are, and two, you look out at that world with this lack of contradiction eyes. Now, who you are. I got kind of sidetracked on that. Who you are, you're a creation of God. You're a creation of God. Now, you might say, well, I'm an atheist, and I believe in evolution, so I'm a creation of Big Bang. And now this stuff's going to start going out on me here. Boy, is that aggravating. I'm just going to have to yell through it. So your question of the Big Bang, and you're going to look at it in totally terms of causality and so forth. But the problem is, if you look at that through lack of contradiction, you will find out that lack of causality in the terms of accidents and over time, it doesn't work out. One of the problems with the Big Bang is it needs more time than what evidence gives it. And when I'm saying lack of contradiction, I'm talking about, like reality evidence. For example, there's two examples I can give here. Back when they sent Voyager out to Saturn, they counted the rings. Now, they already calculated exactly where the rings were. And when Voyager got out there, they had already figured out where the rings were and where the spaces were. Well, when Voyager actually went out there and looked at it, they found out that the visual evidence showed that they were actually opposite. That the rings were where the spots were, and the emptiness is where the rings were. Where they calculated. So I remember seeing this going, wow, they were off. I mean, they did calculate them, like we'll call it 180 degrees off, we'll say. So, I mean, their calculations did something, but they needed actual observation, measurable observation, to take their theoretical constructs and make it real. So now we're seeing this now with the James Webb. James Webb goes out there, it goes into spaces where there was nothing, and they turn up their high resolution looking on the IR band so that they can see through, dust and whatnot. And all of a sudden, the cloud, it just like goes, the galaxies go on forever. They find out that the galaxies that are far enough away are too old by their current model to exist. So something's wrong. The theory about redshift that's wrong. The theory about the Big Bang and the size of the galaxy, the expansion, is wrong. Something's wrong. And how did that come up? Through observation, real observation. And that's okay. It's okay. Well, they were teaching these things as fact in school. You're teaching evolutionary sciences as fact in school when there's no observational evidence. You have the clues lined out and people arrange them. And just like the people who are creationists, who are fighting evolutionists, they're constrained by the dates they perceive as in the Bible. So it has to fit in a 6,000-year window. And so they have to say other things are wrong. You see how everybody's constraining themselves by their belief system. Now, the only constraint that I have by belief system is God created everything, and there is a purpose which ends up going for long-term good. Well, people say, you can't prove that. Well, I can. I've had anecdotal evidence in my own life, and other people have, to show that all things work for good for those who love God. Now, you don't believe that? That's fine. I'm saying in my life, these things are facts to me, that I've seen them in other people. I've seen people who have both been healed. When we're doing our show, they've been healed and they've both died. Healed and died. And in some cases, you could see that person got healing, spiritual healing, and then died. The other person got spiritual healing and then lived. So your goal is to live. That's not the point. It's how you live. It's not staying alive that counts. It's how you live that counts. So even life itself has a consistency of lack of contradiction for the purpose of it, which ends up in either living or dying, being irrelevant, but how you're living on it. So this is where, and people want to know, what's heaven like, or what's the deal? Another thing that I figured out in these years is that the next level of spiritual existence is uncomprehendable. Can't understand it. And the example I would give is, say you were going to look at a two-dimensional person, right? They can go left and right, sideways. They can't go up and down. They have no idea what up and down is. Well, when you try to explain up to them and down, there's no reference point. Zero. You can't even imagine it, right? You can't imagine up from a two-dimensional perspective. And the same applies to us when we go for our time-space continuum, or 3D, or however you want to call it. When we go to the next level, it is uncomprehendable. But because there are more analogs in a 3D world than in a 2D world, you can come up with some descriptors which are not accurate, not precise, but give the sense and the action moving toward that. So like when you read in the Bible, it says about life is eternal. You're going to have eternal life. Well, the way I look at that, and I looked at the Greek behind it, and, It's not something that I think is carried linguistically solo, but I think it might have been there if you actually were a Greek, because the ancient Greek language is nobody at one point, nobody on earth spoke it or could read it. It had to be relearned again. And I mean, they did a great job, don't get me wrong, but you're going to lose some of the subtlety in it. And I personally think, it's my personal looking, is that when you use the term eternal life, we think about longevity. And it's true. It's a true statement. Eternal life is going to have a longevity that we can't comprehend. But I think how I would translate it, if I was going to be translating it, I would see that you'd have an unbounded life. It's unbounded. Energetically, lengthwise, quality-wise, depth, creativity-wise. By our standards here, it's unbounded. Now, there may be bounds in the construct of, let's just say it's a 4D existence. I'm just making this up for talking here. There may be limitations within that structure compared to a higher level, and that's fine. But those particular limitations, by our standards, are for all practical purposes eternal. You say you live for millions of years. I'm just putting this out there. You can't imagine living millions of years. You can't project that. You can't project millions of years of a lifespan. It's impossible. You can't comprehend it. You couldn't even, it's like people trying to talk about, a 10 trillion or 20 trillion in debt. That number means nothing. You can't comprehend 20 trillion until you start comparing it to things like stacking $20 trillion bills goes like the moon and back. And you start doing that kind of stuff, you start to put perspective in it. But when we're talking about going into heaven, the higher levels, the next level, I'll get to higher and lower in a minute, can't comprehend it. So the descriptions in the Bible, heaven is streets of gold, there's jewels and all that. I'm not saying that's not true. All right, I'm saying that from the perspective of the people trying to imagine things beyond their abilities here, in the context of our time-space 3D world, they're projecting that view of heaven, of being streets of gold and what have you. And so it's not that their view is wrong, it's the best they can come up with. I'm not even saying they could do better, right? It's the best you can come up with given our constraint. And that is an exciting thing. It's an exciting thing to realize that the next level is so unbounded in time, space, energy, creativity, and all that, that we can't comprehend we can't describe it. All we can do is come up with shadowy, by comparison, things. When you actually go to the next level and you think about the streets of gold and all that, it might be a joke. You might kind of laugh at it. It's naive. Oh, that's cute. Because it's going to be much better than that. Now, for those who are looking at things like, well, what about hell and stuff like that? Well, again, I'm thinking that when we go to the next level, the heaven and hell differences are more in the quality based on your creative ability going into it. So we see things talking about hell where you have hellfire and all this stuff like that. Is there really hellfire and all that? Again, it's the streets of gold, the hellfire, they're best people can do to describe the quality of that next level. So just like I would say the streets of gold and all that stuff aren't literally what you're going to see, the fire and all that is, again, a descriptor. But it's just like the gold and the jewels, they're a descriptor of positive things, beauty and all that, and it's going to be better. Well, the descriptor of hell means that it's the best you can describe is that, and it's going to be different. And I would say worse in a spiritual sense. Now let's just take for discussion here, and this is how I think about a lot of stuff, but I'm just kind of going on this way. If you go to this next level and you go in it with your positive spiritual growth, words being used like, salvation, you've grown with God and through Jesus and what have you. You go through that positive training, removal of the negativity, the outlook, and you're going through this. You shed your body behind you, and a lot of the negative stuff that's in your body, right? That's part of the machine, like a car. Say you have a car, you're driving a car, and it has a bad driving ability, it's bumpy or whatever. You get into another car, it's done there. You're still there. You're still going from place to place, but you're in a different car. Likewise, one of the benefits of going out of this body is you're going to lose a lot of the negativity limitations that are based on the cellular aspects of your body. And if you follow some of the negative cellular aspects of your body, you could change your outlook, your spiritual outlook. So when you go into the next level, you're not going to have a good outlet. And likewise, if your negativity and you enjoy it and you like it and you further it, when you go into that next level, your negativity is going to be huge. All right, so just think of people going around killing 20 and 30 people at a restaurant or a bar or something. That energy on the other side is going to be beyond description. You can't describe the utter power and evil and destruction that person would have on the other side, right? So what makes it important here is we're here to make choices so that when we go to there, we're going to be separated. That's by biblical terms, goats and sheep and all that. So that those people who choose that negativity can go experience it to high degrees. Now, we look at that as that's hell. Can you imagine? Nothing but gangbangers times an infinite almost amount of power and negativity and murderousness or what capabilities and slavery and all that. Can you imagine? We call that hell. And the people who are deceived to think they're going to enjoy that and be able to live in there, they're going to be, they've made those choices here and are going to move on to there. And this is where in my personal life, this is where I think Jesus comes in, is that there's a lot of trickery going on here by Satan that's blinding us, making us negative and depressed and all this stuff, so that our growing is harming. We're not growing. So Jesus comes along, and teaches the way intellectually, and then sends the helper to work spiritually. By following those paths, you can overcome what the devil is doing and what has happenstance hit you along the way, and you can begin to grow in the right direction so that when you leave here, you can keep going in that area. This is the gift, I think, that God gives through Jesus. People say, well, what about other ways? Well, I'm not going to address those other ways because I am not there. All right, I'm going to tell you what I have found and what I've seen work, and you could do whatever you'd like. I'm not going to argue about this way over that way, because that defeats the purpose for both sides. So I'm just saying that when it comes down to this aspect of it, when people ask you, who are you? You want to say you're a child of God. I've been created before the foundations of the world. I'm come in this place, in this car, with bad brakes and whatever, and I've been in here to learn and grow, sometimes in spite of my environment, sometimes because of my environment, being led by the teachings of Jesus and the power of the helper that he sent to move us in that direction. And because we're only going to be here for a little while. I mean, when you're 20, 15, you're going to live forever. When you're 65, you go, I'm kind of, I could see kind of the edges, And I was in the hospital a couple of years ago, and I guess could have died. So, but you learn to think like, well, you know what? Things aren't that important. Having the latest iPhone, not that important. Having a particular car or certain clothes or certain this or that, not that important. What's important is that you get the environment and the tools around you so you can grow and prepare yourself for that next level. And in my case, unabashedly, unbashfully, and absolutely without doubt, following the teachings of Jesus and having the helper in my heart is moving me in that direction, in spite of myself and in spite of my surroundings. And the only thing I could give, if I don't know, maybe I can give myself credit for, is the idea of this lack of contradiction. It's like I remember praying one day. I was at a Baptist church, and I remember praying when I was reading the Bible to get the gifts of the Spirit. Paul mentioned, don't get for gifts of tongues and all this stuff, but the gifts of the Spirit, the prophecy. Now, I didn't realize what prophecy was at the time, but I've now figured out what prophecy is, and that's truth. It's not necessarily telling the future. It could be. But prophecy is being able to find truth. I got inside me some kind of I call it a BS meter, which would be an opposite way to say truth meter. I can kind of smell something. I'm reading this and going, there's something here. I got to look at this. That little thing in there, if it's a blessing from that prayer from God, thank you, Lord. But that's the one thing that I've brought to the table. And again, it might not even be me anyway. But you have to make the decision. You yourselves are deciding to go along or not go along. You are going, yeah, I'm going to do this. No, I'm not going to do this. There's the decisions that are being made, and the reasons why are most of the time you've been lied to, you've been manipulated, you've been mistreated or mistaught, or you've given into lower energy attractions, violence or sex, or low level stuff. You're following that energy rather than a higher energy, which is a little subtler. But if somebody follows a low energy long enough and they survive, a lot of times they come out of it because they realize it's nowhere. And so, excuse me. So the point I'm saying here is that you have to find out who you are, and from you really who you are, you seek out what's best for your growth. Now, it doesn't mean it's all about you, because one of the things we have in this world is us. So you are part of us. You have a special part that you can add to us. And then by all of us helping one another, we multiply the growth factors of us. I don't know what factor. This is what it's all about. And if you look at what's going on in the world now, they want you to be separated. I don't mean separate yourself from the world as is written in the Bible. I'm talking about, it's like, well, blacks have their own black place. Hey, whites are being replaced. That's not fair. Hey, the rich people have had it for enough. We're going to come in and take their stuff. And then there's the whole transgender and gay issue aspects where they're going to come in and say, well, we should have this. Everyone is separating themselves from who they really are into these subcategories, which deceive them. It derails them. It has them to go apart from each other and from going apart from your center goal. So it ends up being where the world is set up for taking you to give you any other identification other than who you really are. You want to focus on your race? Fine. You want to focus on your gender? Fine. Or transgender? Fine. You want to focus on economics? Fine. You want to focus on power, being a boss or power structure? Fine. You want to focus on doing evil, killing, and all that? Obviously, that's fine. But do not focus on God, the real you, and your growth for the next level. I mean, because just from traditional speaking, the devil's not going to go to that level, or he's at the level in that battleground on the other side of this level, and he's not going to go there. So he wants to take everybody with him. There's such a thing as malice and evil, where they go like, "Hey, if I can't have it, nobody can. If I can't go into this building, I'm gonna blow it up. If I can't be in power in a particular country or a particular position, I'm going to destroy the company, the country, the what have you." This is the mentality of the evil forces that we're up against. Now, they have power. I could sit here and and say like, no, they're not going to do anything, and they could just. I mean, if they were so inclined, they could blow my house up with a missile or whatever. But God is in charge in this stuff, and I'm not saying he may have the mail misfire or what have you, or it could have me out of the house at the time. That's another thing we have to do. If we're going to follow God's lead, we're going to have to let him lead. We're going to have to follow an outline that's not necessarily ours. The principles are going to be matching up. The bottom line is always going to go for it. But when who was that? Is it Isaiah? When Isaiah was put in prison, I believe this is, I might be missing a name, so excuse me, but Isaiah was in prison when Babylon came and took over Israel and took them all, killed them and took the rest of slavery, and he was spared in prison. Not a great place to be, but nonetheless, it was spared. So this is the way I'm saying for people to look at it. Find out who you are, and that is the child of the living God. Find out what you are to be, which is you have certain talents and goals to learn, things to change. You have deficiencies you were born with. You have some of them you have to work with or around. Some you can change. You have to. We're not here to party. You can have good times, but life is not here for us to do whatever we want. Do as thou wilt is the phrase. It's do the highest best good for you and those around you. And if you follow that principle, and of course you're going to mess up, you're going to intentionally do things wrong. I've had it with this and mess up and all that. You'll pay. You'll create a situation that maybe you wish you shouldn't have done, but now you got to live through it. Another thing in this idea is that when you learn not to do the thing that's wrong, you don't have to go through the wrong thing. So if you're married, you're a guy, you're married, and they're at a party and some lady wants to sleep with you and this and that. If you don't do it, you don't have to find out what happens afterwards. Pregnancy, disease, divorce, guilt. See, you know what I mean? It's not worth, it's when we think the event is worth more than what it really is. That's where TV, movies, the devil, that's what they tell us. That do these things and the reward will be worth it. It's always better in the end. It'll be worth it in the end. It's not true. Always, it's where we're at with this. I don't even know how much time I was doing Erectus, didn't I? That's before Homo sapien. I guess I was thinking of an episode of Friends. Homo sapien. You're looking out of eyes that have DNA that is from humans that are both have blessings and curses. You're going to overcome that and learn from that. And you're going to be in an environment that's going to have both blessings and curses. Some have way more than the other. And you're going to grow in spite of that and or because of that. And then you're going to reach out and help other people in their context, in the context of they have their problems, you have your problems, and sometimes the wisdom and help that you can have, sometimes just compassion, just being there, can help them. And by that synergy of us helping one another, that's the best results. That's the peace. Seek that's being stolen from us from the system. So I'm looking up, there's a question here. Question, would you say that we are eternal beings having a human experience? Well, I guess so. You know, I'm not going to say we're eternal beings, meaning that we've always been around. We're eternal, beginning and end. I look at us as rays, geometrically speaking. We have a beginning and we go on forever. So that's that's how I would say that. Another question, talk to Dr. Ramleby. I have. We're talking about doing another show, but rather than doing a show, meaning like have a plan, I've learned that what's best with Dr. Ram is just to kind of just let it go. We're going to hear about some things will be repeated, some things will be new, but it's always kind of fun. Let's see who we got here. Lakota. Yeah, Lakota he's been around for a long time. He used to run a message base back in the day where people could, comment and talk about the show Feet to the Fire. And so He's been around for a long time. It's good to see him here again. Frank. Frank. Yeah, Frank has been working. I've known him before all of the radio show. He invented a way to refill bubble jet cartridges. He invented it. It was fabulous. He's one of these inventor guys. He also came up with a system to take dot matrix ink and add Duralube to it so that it lubricates the dot matrix heads. It advances their life, I don't know, tenfold. He's pretty good with this stuff. Now he's been working on the iron. He's talking about the iron lung. The electric cars and what a fraud that is in electric charging windmills and whatnot. What a fraud that is. He's on Facebook. If someone would want to find him, you could find him through probably commenting on one of my comments. I am on all these things. I'm on Gab, which is my favorite. I'm on Facebook, both as my name and the show Feet to the Fire. And you can also find out about other video formats there are. Is there anything else? Anybody there in the chat room real fast got a question for we're trying a new system here, and it seems to be working. I'm still running Windows 7, but I do have a quad-core i7. It's about 5 years old, but it was the best that was out. And I have a lot of memory. And our internet seems to be pretty good connection. So I have no drop frames. That's pretty good. So I'm going to leave it at that, I guess. I guess there's any... I want to thank everybody who's... Like I've seen a couple people here, like Lakota, he's around for a long time. Margie's another one that I want to say to her. She's been around... I think she's the longest continual listener of the show. She's her and her husband, but she survived her husband, and so she's been around probably the longest. Other people have been around longer have passed away. There's also Dave, who's in Idaho. He's been listening for a long time too. So he might be listening now, or he will listen. So shout out goes to him. But some of the loyal listeners in the past have passed away. I mean, Wade Gordon, I had it when I was syndicated on satellite to AM radio. He was one of the hosts there, and we've talked for many years after that. It's one bad thing when you're friends via the internet and or phone only. And so I call him and I get no answer. I call, no answer, call, no answer, call, no answer. Then I finally call and get one of his sisters that he was caring for, who was had a problem, mental problem. She's very young in her mind. She answered her phone and she says that Wayne died. Yeah, he fell off the table. He was sitting at his desk and he fell over and died. So I don't know what happened to them, but I mean, it's like one thing they should have here, I guess somebody come up with, is some place you could join and put a list of people that let you know when you die. Because it's happened several times now where the person's, I'm called to call them and they're just dead. Explain more what I said about eternal beings. We're like a line. Well, a ray in geometric terms has a point beginning and it moves on forever. A line has no start and no ending. A ray has a start and no ending. I was saying that I think that we had a start somewhere along the line and that we continue onward eternally. And, a lot of things that I used to want to know about, I found out that it really doesn't matter. Because to learn about things, like, for example, there's a big deal about Planet X for you. This is back in the, early 2000s, it was big. Planet X and all this stuff, and there's all this stuff about it. I want, there's no reason to find out about this or not. It doesn't matter. Because you can't find out. There's no way to prove that it's there. And if you do prove if it was here, it could be thousands of years from now when it's come. So it's a waste of time, and that's the whole point of basically the devil and the government and any other sources of power, is they want to waste your time to keep you away from the things that really will help you personally and collectively. You want to keep you away from that. You're being harvested for your energy, for your work. I mean, if you're being harvested for views on a YouTube or hits to a website, that's the value of you to that person. And they want to get you there at all costs. They'll give you clickbait, of contests to get you there, because business-wise for them, having those numbers means they can make more money. This is what it comes down to. You have to think about what's best for you. And I don't mean what's easiest for you. I don't mean what's comfortable for you. I don't mean it's like within your realm of desire. You have to really examine yourself. I can't say his name now. Socratesian view. You have to examine yourself, for lack of contradiction, on the views what matter. And that's where the Beatitudes come in. And Jesus' teaching. That's why, to me, Jesus teaches the most important thing there is. Yeah, you got to learn. It's good to learn how to, drive and cook and defend yourself and all these things. Yeah, it's not my point. But if you don't have the right head screwed on your shoulder spiritually, well, Robert Johnson, that must be a friend from Jersey, now New York, if I believe so. He's got a farm and something. There's some of the stuff this guy's got planned and stuff he's doing. It's amazing. He's got way more energy than I do. I think we're about the same age too. I should kick myself in the butt, I guess. And that's what I'm doing here with this show now. Is I'm going to apparently one of my things, what I do is this. This is what I can offer. I'm telling you what I found out, and there's no warranty express or implied, but I believe it and I live it, so maybe it'll help somebody else. Let's see, I'm looking up here. Dr. Ram, I talk with him. All right, well, I haven't been on YouTube. I've been doing other things because, again, they're limiting. So I guess I'll stop in here when I can. When I'm going to talk about won't affect the outcome, and then you can just follow me on other means to get the full package. Today was just checking in, saying hi, and 20-year anniversary. It's a couple days from now, but I won't be able to do a show then. And it's just amazing, 20 years. Starting out, when I started doing it, the only reason you could really broadcast was because of Winamp. Winamp really started the whole internet broadcasting aspect, streaming. But because of my experience using outboard mixing and sound, I was able to do all like a normal stuff a radio show would do, and then just broadcast it. But now the software, the stuff coming. In fact, I used to produce internet shows, and now that stuff's gone because they got software that does it all, and so the human factor moves on. You should do a regular live, Jim. It's great to see you live, buddy. I'm not sure who Beer Coy's Nation is. I guess I got a couple of guests, but yeah, I guess my problem is that I don't, for me to sit down here and talk. I mean, you look on the internet. There's a million people. They're doing TikToks or whatever, and they're doing all these shows and videos going live on Facebook. I'm live now, and they're talking about nothing. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just going like, they're just like blah, blah, blah. And people are like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And other people, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I'm looking at myself going like, who am I? I don't want to, am I just another blah, 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 So I'm kind of self-screening myself and trying to think, well, Harold from Fannie Mae. Harold. Gosh. I'm drawing a blank there, Harold. Is there another Harold? Harry? I don't know. I'm sorry about that. I bet you something else will kick in. So I'm kind of self-conscious. Like, I just don't want to go up and blah, 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 because there's a lot of blah, blah, blah out there. And a lot of it's just a waste of time. Actually, a lot of it's very negative. I get these clicks. I get clicks from, this person's on their live, and you have a girl who's young, attractive, half-dressed. I'm like, why am I going to see this? I mean, I guess it's possible that she may be talking about differential equations, but, I mean, it's probably just blah, blah, blah with a body thrown in. I'm like, I don't need that. Well, I don't think you have to worry about my body. But, my point is, I appreciate the feedback because I tell you, if you want to actually see me talk about stuff more, ask me questions. If you say, hey, I'd like to know as specific as possible, if it's going to be something about Bible or philosophy or, fine, specific as possible, I can talk on this stuff because I've thought about it. And if I haven't thought about it, hey, I will think about it. Oh, that's cool. I never thought about that. And I'll go into a thing about it and get back to you. So I kind of need feedback and I guess it's inspiration in terms of, I just don't want to get down and just start talking. If I can talk about something and somebody wants to know about something, that kind of what gets me going. I'm talking on the phone, people who know me more casually, I'll start going off on things. And a lot of the times I wonder, like, these people, do they really care about this? I just start, like, automatically talking about it. So I got this feature on me, but it'd be better if someone says to me, hey, what about this? Hey, what about tubes? Why do people use tubes in audio when they have transistors? No, I can go talk about it because I've went down that path. I'm looking right now. I got a integrated tube amp sitting on my desk that I use for music, and there's advantages to it. So I mean, I could talk about it, but just to go out and just start blah blah blah, and So my email address is it's easiest at Feet to the Fire Radio at Proton Mail. I mean, Feet to the Fire is a long word, but it's easy to remember rather than me spelling out my name. Feet to the Fire Radio at protonmail.com. feettothefireradio.com is the website. And from there you go into the section. There's a menu on the side, and it tells you where you can find other things. Again, Gab, it's F, the number 2F is my I don't know what you call it, name or address at Gab. And I really would say that's where people need to be because it's really free speech. Some of it's knucklehead stuff, and I just block them. No problem. Never see them again. So what's great about Gab is when you go there, you get nobody. There's nothing. You can go onto the pro feed, and you can get random stuff. You can follow the owner of Gab, and he sends out stuff. But you build your own network, and if you don't like somebody, you block them, and they're gone. So it's like, there's white supremacists there. There's racists there. Well, if you find one, you block them, and now they're gone from you. I mean, it's just simple, right? That's how you do it in real life. When you start having people filter for you, now you're going to get a skew of view of life, and that's what's happening now. The so-called January 6th stuff and all these things in the especially in the racist area, they're using that to separate people. You can enrage some people, and you can separate other people, and you've won both ways. Okay, Harold. Gosh, I just don't remember a Harold. I'm sorry. Iroquois Nation. That's quite funny. So, yeah, Nancy Leader. I noticed Nancy Leader. Nancy Leader was the first big guest they had on this show. It was November of 2003. It was after Planet X didn't show up in May, like she said, and then she was banned from all the, the art bells and whatever. So I thought I'd have her on and ask her, why. And the place I was at the time, Radio Heart, was still around too. It was an internet radio, and it crashed their servers. But nowadays bandwidth is much more easy to get. I mean, I'm broadcasting at HD, 920 by 1080 HD, and it's like not one lost frame. I'm like, gee, I'm telling you, it was like rubbing sticks and stones together back in the beginning to get shows done. So a lot of things have happened. All right, so anything else? How's my truck? I sold my personal truck. The company that I work for, I was contracted to. They sold their company to another one. I did not like who they sold their company to, so I made some decisions. And the other companies available were going to take more of the pot from me. And I thought, it's getting less and less advantageous to have your own truck. And I only got hopefully a couple years left to drive, so I decided to sell my truck and go be a company driver. And I'm at a company now. The owner is incredibly nice. The owner is about the best a truck company could be. Realistically, I don't think there could be any better. I mean, the guy is really cares about what you want. He's asking you if you want to do this run and what time you want to start, where you want to go. I mean, it's just amazing. I was at a place where they told you, they just told you where to jump and how high. That was it. So it was good. Yes, Beer Koi here is, they've taken much of the reason for truck owning. Yeah, I mean, what it is you make more money as a truck driver, owner-operator. You do. And the best things I miss now is I could take a day off, and I'd lose a larger sum of money than I do now, but I'd make it back in the next day. I could work 4 days a week and make way more than I do now at 5. But if something goes wrong with the truck, I could be in a hole overnight in $10,000. So I mean, there was this thing going on that I just said, I'm getting too nervous about it all, and I ended up, I guess, taking the easy way out. I guess some might say, but I got the price I wanted for the truck, and I was able to go to a place that's pretty good. Now it's a little dicey now. If you want to ask about the container business, that's what I drive, containers. The containers are dropping drastically in from China. Turns out that they shipped most of the stuff at the beginning of the year because they were afraid of not getting in by the end of the year, like it was the year before. The year before, we were like madmen working. So they shipped everything early, so it was crazy earlier in the year, and now it's really light. But again, my company, he's dedicated to giving people at least 8 hours worth of work. And I tell you, I can't speak highly enough about the guy. There's some new people there because there's a new thing going on where you have a new guy coming in, he's starting to crack the whip. And frankly, some people need the whip cracked. They're taking advantage of this guy, in my opinion. But so there are some ups and downs going on there. But I'm still working. Yeah. Smart way, 65 stress kills. Yeah, it does. And it kills younger, too. And my dad was 44 when he died, and it was basically because of stress. Smoking cigars like cigarettes didn't help anything. But, yeah. So, I'm just praying that we keep the lights on. And it does, we're in this complete crowd. The whole administration, don't give me Republican Democrats, McConnell and the rest of them are in on it, too. They're destroying this country. They're destroying the country. And it's hard for me to watch it go down the drain, and I can't do nothing about it, but I can't. I can just do what I can do. And I have to survive in it. So, now I'm paying, going to be paying gas bills twice as much as they were. Electric bills almost 50% up. My food bills are, I'd say, at least 33% higher. And I may be lowballing it. So it's tough. Yeah. Iroquois said he had a stroke at 40. Wow. Yeah, that is good. Lucky to survive. Yeah, my cousin, it's almost a year ago, my cousin He had a bad heart, and he got COVID, but it really wasn't COVID's fault. It was his heart couldn't take it. He was overweight and bad heart and stuff, and it just pushed him over. This last year, some people have died, and it makes you kind of sober up a little bit. Again, I'm not. I had a guest on my show years ago that said that eventually things might get bad enough that you'll eat the neighborhood dog. And I said to him, I was a little mad. I got kind of mad by that comment. And I said, no. I mean, I understand that, walk a mile in someone's shoes before you judge them. I got that. But I could tell you pretty good that I'm not going to eat the dog. I'll sit down and die with the dog. I'm not going to. I mean, you have to be a human being. You have to be a child of God. I'm not going to eat the dog to stay alive. Die then. It's not staying alive. It's not living. It's how you live. It's not staying alive. It's how you have lived while you're alive. Because we're going to go into an internal environment we're all going to die here. You put the scale out long enough. We're all going to die. The sun's going to die. Galaxies will die. I mean, whatever. So there's no way out of this alive. But there's a way out of it spiritually. And, eating the neighborhood dog is not one of the ways. In fact, I don't eat meat at all. And it's because of that reason. I don't want to kill an animal and eat it. Not because I go along with the New World Order thing about eating bugs. I don't want to eat bugs either, So it's not that I go along with a PETA and their kind of politically driven thing. Of course, I am very fond and help animals, and I don't want to kill them and eat and steal their work is what it comes down to. So this is what I mean when I don't fit in any category, because if someone says, oh, you don't eat meat, they would assume mean a lot of things, whether being a soy boy or whatever they call it, and it's not the case. I've made individual decisions based on certain principles, and I stick by them. And that's one of them. And I could tell you why, and I could tell you what it means to me, and I could tell you why I think it's good spiritually and why I think it's good physically. And that's what I'm making a decision for my life. And that's what I like about the freedom of this country, on paper anyway, is that I'm in charge of my life. As long as I don't harm other people, I'm in charge of my life. And if I don't want to take any particular medicine, I don't want to eat any particular food, that's okay. And that's what I want to strive for. That's why I think the Constitution is a great thing. But the only problem with the Constitution is people have to follow it. People have to support it. People have to protect it, because it won't do it itself. And right now, the people that are, you recommend you listen to? It's a song that came out 1969, end of the year, so it's 69-70. It's Monster by the band Steppenwolf. Actually, I've had John Kay on the show from Steppenwolf talking about the song and, the political situations from the 60s, and at the time it was the 90s, I think, or 2000s. If you listen to that song, it's exactly what's going on now. And it doesn't, at that time, you were talking about conservative leaders. At the time, 69, you were talking about Nixon and so on. But the same things are coming here, because it is about a government being a monster. There's a monster on the loose. It's got our heads into the noose, and it just sits there watching. And they're laughing. What do you think they're doing right now? All these people, all the heads of state, they're out flying around. They're out going to parties and all that, while other people are they're spending trillions of dollars on their pet projects and what they want to do, and watching other people just go to hell. There's a monster on the loose. It's nothing to do with conservative or liberal. It's got nothing to do with, you talk about whether it's religious or atheistic. It's the idea of the helping one another and freedom. That's what matters. And John Kay in there talked in his DVD he did about Steppenwolf. He got this big, at the end, I'd like to try and take that clip out and play it, because it's a fantastic pro-patriot clip by a guy who wrote a song back in the 70s, Draft Resistor, and because he looked at it, at least from my gathering, he looked at it the right way. It wasn't about a label or a political label. It was about the reality of constitutional freedom and law and so forth. Yeah. Yeah, there's the thing here about giving people who should be given their last breath for the Constitution, and we are complicit, and so forth. Yeah, that's true, but there's only, when you look back at the constitutional beginnings, you look back at the, I hear sayings from the patriot type people saying, "Oh, only took 3% of the population during the Revolutionary War, and they took on, the mighty navy of England and so forth." It's a whole different ballgame today, pal. It says back then, a private person with a means could buy the same thing that the King of England could for defense. It's a whole different ballgame now. They have weaponry that is dwarfs weaponry. Now, it doesn't mean because there's a lot of guns people have, doesn't mean there isn't a fight, but let's not get arrogant about it. Because the amount of carnage that can be created is legion. One of the reasons I think what's going on now with the escalation in Russia is because they can goad Russia into throwing some bombs. They can throw some bombs and they can get some work done. Now, I think they wanted it to go smoothly and quietly. That's why they wanted Hillary and this globalist system. It's like they wanted just to go slowly and quietly. Trump got in there, and they're mad at the regular people who voted for him, and now they're making him pay. They want him to. Back when he was first president, who was the CIA head for Obama? I can't think of his name. I'm seeing his face now. I got a problem when I see a face. I can't say the name. It'll come to me. Somebody might pop it up here. He said that when Trump was talking about the deep state, he said that you're going to die in prison. This is what he says to the president. Now, somehow he didn't get arrested. I don't understand that. He's going to die in prison. They want him in prison and torture him to death for how dare he stand up against them. How dare he? He's a bourgeois. He's not one of the elites. How dare he do this? So we got a lot coming here. Let's see. We got Topor, Love Monster, Steppenwolf, John K. Brian, and social commentator. Yes, I think he is. It was a great conversation. If you go to YouTube and you type "Feet to the Fire" John K., there is a truncated 2-part interview on there, and I do have the full interview up on my website. If you want to send me a email or something or comment, maybe I'll if I remember, I'll send you the link. It was very good. One of my personal high points of the show history to this point. So I'm kind of just rambling on here. I don't mind that, but I got to get the ball rolling here. It's back to the mill grind tomorrow. So it's good seeing you guys. And Harold, gosh, I'm sorry I forgot what I remember a lot of things and I forget a lot of things. So it's not personal. And it's good to see some of the people here. I haven't heard him in a while. Lakota in a while. And then I'll give Robert Johnson, I'll give him a call tomorrow, see what's shaking. And so it's good seeing you guys. And 20 years. Check out the website, feedtothefireradio.com. And in particular, if you go up at the top there, you'll see the old website. It's Feet2Fire, number 2, fire. You can go through there and look at the past shows, and you can fumble around in what I have listed. But if you go to that link, you can go download all of them. There's like 30 gigs of shows of audio up on Drive. You could download it all and listen to it. So, Mantino. There's Grant Park. Wow, well, you're really good. You're giving me all these clues here. Yeah, I lived in Grant Park, and Mantino is right down, next town over. Gosh darn. Well, anyway, drop me a line if you want. Feet to the Fire Radio at proteinmail.com. Iroquois, it'd be. Well, Lakota, I change phones, so that's not the case. I can send me your email. Hopefully it's not Gmail or nothing like that. I'll send you my thing, Steppenwolf. Hey, how about it? I'd play it now. So I used to, when I did the old shows, I had bumper music that was tied into the topics. I had a couple, 3, 4 breaks an hour. Let's see, one top of the hour, bottom, 2 to 3 breaks an hour. And I would play, Steppenwolf was a lot of my bumper music. So, in fact, if you listen, Seasonal Dryer, okay. If you listen to a lot of the older shows, you'll hear all that bumper music in there. So, might be a good trip down the lane. Again, John Kay is there. It was December 2000 and maybe 11. Anyway, if I can think about it, I'll put the link down. Okay. All right, well, I got to roll, and God bless you all. Hang in there. Remember who you are, what your goal is to get yourself acclimated and lined up to go to the positive side. Jesus and a helper, which they call the Holy Spirit, is the way I'm doing it and the way I recommend it and the way to do it. And, thank God and God bless Jesus for doing what he did. And I'll see you guys next week. We'll try and do this. Sunday nights is usually the normal thing. So let me hit the ending stuff, and we'll see you.